The cemetery was silent in the kind of way that made even powerful people uncomfortable, the kind of silence that pressed against the chest and reminded everyone present that money, influence, and fame eventually bowed to the same ending. And as the billionaire's private funeral reached its final moments, a polished crowd dressed in flawless black stood around the open casket, their expressions carefully rehearsed, some sad, some shocked, some quietly calculating, but none as raw as the men in the blue janitor's uniform who suddenly stepped forward, his boots muddy, his hands trembling, his eyes locked on the woman lying inside the casket, because to him, she wasn't just another powerful name or a headline, she was the woman who once looked him in the eyes and treated him like a human being when no one else did. And as the priest cleared his throat to say the final words, the janitor's voice cracked through the air like lightning. "Stop. She's not dead," sending a ripple of disbelief through the mourners as gasps erupted and security instinctively moved forward, the billionaire's son stiffening in outrage, lawyers whispering urgently, and executives exchanging looks that said this was an embarrassment that needed to be erased quickly. But the janitor didn't stop, didn't step back, didn't bow his head like he was supposed to. Instead he pointed with shaking fingers at the woman's chest and said words that froze everyone in place. "She's breathing, barely, but she's alive," and laughter, sharp, cruel, dismissive, broke from the billionaire's inner circle, one man scoffing that grief makes people hallucinate, another ordering security to remove the cleaner, but the janitor pushed past them, his voice rising with desperation as he explained that years ago, when he cleaned night floors at the billionaire's hospital, he learned to recognize things others missed. How shallow breathing could look like stillness, how certain medical conditions could slow the body to near death, how the warmth in her skin didn't feel like a corpse's chill. And when security grabbed his arms, he shouted one final sentence that changed everything. "If I'm wrong, bury me with her, but if I'm right, and you ignore this, you'll be burying a living woman." And something about the certainty in his voice caused a pause, just a second of hesitation, long enough for the billionaire's daughter's personal doctor to step closer, annoyed but curious, placing 2 fingers on her neck only to feel it, a pulse so faint it almost vanished, and in that instant the entire funeral collapsed into chaos as orders were shouted, phones pulled out, paramedics rushed in, and the janitor fell to his knees, exhausted, shaking, praying under his breath, while the same people who mocked him minutes ago stood frozen, watching the woman they had already mourned begin to move as oxygen masks were fitted and her eyelids fluttered. And later, at the hospital, doctors confirmed the impossible, that a rare condition combined with medication had slowed her vital signs to near undetectable levels, that if she had been buried, she would have died fully conscious. And as news spread, the world learned that a janitor with no title, no wealth, and no power had done what billionaires, doctors, and executives failed to do simply because he paid attention and cared. And when the woman finally woke, the first person she asked for wasn't her lawyers or family or board members but the men who refused to let me die. And when the janitor entered the room, unsure if he even belonged there, she took his hand and said words that silenced every powerful person watching from the doorway. "You saved my life when everyone else had already written me off." And in the days that followed, the billionaire shocked the world not by rewarding him with money alone, but by changing the entire structure of her company, creating programs that elevated invisible workers, giving janitors, drivers, cleaners, and guards real voices, real respect, real opportunity. And when reporters asked the janitor how it felt to become a hero overnight, he said something that still echoes today: "I didn't become a hero, I just refused to stop caring." And if this story moved you, if it reminded you that greatness doesn't wear expensive suits and sometimes comes in muddy boots, make sure you subscribe to this channel, because the world is full of stories like this. Stories that inspire, shock, and remind us that humanity is the greatest power of all, and the next one might just change the way you see everything.